This is Larry. It's Friday, January 23rd, about 1:45. I'm heading to a park close to my area called Ladera, I believe. And I normally don't go in parks looking for modern day money. I'm usually looking for old coins. I thought, oh well. My brothers do this about every day. They're always going looking for rings and jewelry and all that, hopefully finding something. So I thought I had a little time just right down the street here. So I'd swing the old coin detector, see if I find anything. Maybe I'll find a gold ring, who knows. Hopefully I don't get kicked out, but we'll find out. So I figured first I'll start over close to this baseball diamond over here. I was going to go over to the playground area, but it's filled up with kids, so I don't want to do that. I'll give this a shot here. See if there's anything on the ground. Well, I had a hit there, and I checked it with my pinpointer also. Never did find anything, so I put the plug back. Well, I had another hit. I dug down right there, but didn't find anything, so check it again. Put all the plugs back. Maybe I'll check one more spot. No, still didn't find anything, so I'll move on. Well, just as soon as I got to the baseball diamond, I was just going to start in the dirt. Some kids showed up to play baseball, so that's out. So I'm striking out here. Almost got three strikes. I know the hope I finally had to give up. I got baseballs flying at me and everything else here, so I'll move out way over there, see if I find anything. Well, tried a few places, got hits, but found nothing, so I want to come back when there's nobody here, maybe super early in the morning, so I can go over by where the playground is. Maybe there's something. So this is pretty boring, so what I'll do, as far as the video, I'm going to add the last segment of the class from Jeff Williams, and maybe that'll make the video a lot more exciting.
And this is for you.
Yeah, I have $3,000 or $4,000, right?
I know. I love shaker tables. This is more up my alley right here. Keen makes one called an RP4. Fantastic machine. It's about 2x4, and it's got twin magnets that rotate on the bottom, so it's constantly trying to pull that magnetic sand out. Shaker tables work just like you see when I'm tapping the top of that gold pan. All that gold shakes because of specific gravity all the way top. You can get some really super fine gold out of shaker tables. They've been using them for a long time. The early miners used to use them on free mill, not on your sulfides. You can, and I've seen people get the sulfides out and then run them. They'll heat them and of course cook them. But the RP4 is something you guys would probably get into. They're about $2,400. They are pricey, but they do work really well. You have to make sure you set it up on the right table. And it has to be level. The table has to be level, not the table. Because I had a gentleman try to level the table. It's like, no, it's supposed to sit at an angle. He was trying to force it and level. Remember that guy?
Oh my God, yes I do.
The bigger mining companies use what's called a Gemini table. And yes, there's other tables out there. They got the 4x8s and they got the stacked shaker tables that they use down in Africa and South America. The Gemini tables, they call those coffin tables. Because, I know, it sounds funny, because if you look at a Gemini table, it looks like it's the shape of a coffin. That's the only way I can describe it. They work really well. They're made out of hardened plastic, and you can actually get super fine gold on, really pure gold on a, if you've ever seen a table work, on that one top line that goes all the way over to the clean trough. For you, if you've got a lot of crushed material, I would go with a shaker table. And what? I would probably go with an RP4. Gemini is probably going to be too much. But
Do you have to keep them inside? I mean, do they warp if you're outside with them?
They're made out of plastic.
Okay.
The RP4s, Geminis, most of them. The older ones were made out of wood, like you see in Virginia City and places like that, where they had the riffles running across this way. All the newer ones, most of them are made out of plastic or steel that have some type of rubber lining on the top, or the lining or the pad is made out of rubber. You can get them in all different sizes from all around the world. Actually, China's making a heck of a lot of them lately with everything else they make for us. So I would go with the shaker table for you.
Yeah, don't they have to be set on concrete though?
Yes.
They've
Yes,
got to have just, I mean, a
yes.
rock solid base
Yes.
so that the shaking is controlled.
Precisely. I'm glad you brought that up. The way the shaker or the shaker tables work is it's got a cam lobe and it goes back and it has like a quick jolt to it. And wherever you have it set, if you don't have it anchored in concrete, it's going to move the stand with it. So your table's going to go down the street. So you got to have it anchored in concrete. I've seen guys use sandbags. That doesn't work. Trust me. You've got to have the foundation set up, bolt it right in, or else it's going to move. They are very, very efficient, and large mines have been using them for years and years and years. I really like them because we run a lot of material, and I like to use shaker tables in that type of scenario. Now, there's something else that I have to talk about. It's called a centrifuge. I don't know if you guys are familiar with centrifuge. They use these on a lot of the mines in South America and Africa. It's really, really good for getting small gold, especially if you're getting it out of low gold like you're talking about. These are the companies, if you really want to look into them, that makes some really, really good centrifuges. The way does it work? Well, it's like a sluice box in a circle. That's the only way I can describe it. It's a round container, and it's got a plastic insert that has all these ribs in it. The material comes down through the top in a liquid. When it gets to the bottom of the bowl, as it's spinning around, it goes up through those ribs, and the gold is forced out because of centrifugal force to the outer edge. And all the lighter material flows up over the top and then goes down through to the waste section, wherever that might be, a pond or what have you. And then when they get done, they take a hose and they just clean out those inner riffles to get the gold out. They work really, really well. And they're starting to make them what's called a horizontal one, which is really funky. Instead of having it feed into the center, they feed it along a long pipe tube, and it spins at a tremendous speed. So the gold is forced to the outer edges while the lighter stuff is blown through. It's a really good machine, but unless you got a big mining company, I wouldn't even think about it. They're about 10,000 bucks. So, and they go up from there. The ones I really like are the Nelsons. They use those all the time. So if you want to look that up, that's what I would do. Any questions? You knew I was going to talk about smelting. Okay, this has probably been used for, gosh, forever and ever. It's a very, very easy way to get the gold, fine gold, out without having to use mercury. A lot of countries use it. South America uses it. Africa uses it. Small miners here, I've done it before. It's not that hard once you understand the principles. All you have to do, and I have kind of like a list right here, is you got to have a furnace that gets up to about 2,500 degrees. Gold melts at 1,950 degrees, I believe, somewhere in that range. So you're going to want to get that gold hot enough to melt. Next, you're going to need a crucible. We use graphite, so you can use a ceramic. And it's going to have to be big enough. It should be twice the size of the material you're running. So if you got 10 grams to run, you better have a 20-gram crucible. Because sometimes when you're heating up at flux, it'll actually start to bubble and raise. And if your crucible's not deep enough, guess what? Your furnace is going to be filled with all kinds of flux. And you don't want that because you have to chip it out when it cools. Okay, now the fluxes we use is the Hank Chapman flux. I love this stuff. If you go to a company called MakeYourOwnGoldBars.com, there's a guy there named Steve. Fantastic guy. He'll hook you up with this stuff. It's great for purifying gold and silver. That's a specific job. It's got borax in it and a bunch of other stuff. In the old days, they just used borax, and that's what they're trying to tell them what to use down in South America and Africa, because, especially South America, because they're using mercury and it's killing everybody. So you can use borax instead of using mercury, and you just burn it inside of a furnace. Now the way it works is, you'll put it in your crucible, you'll leave it in for about 30-45 minutes, you're going to you're going to want to preheat your mold. And you have to use what's called a conical mold. I wouldn't use anything else. You probably could, but it's going to be a mess. Conical mold is going to force all the gold, which is heavier, down to the tip. So this is actually, I've got it upside down right now, it would be the other way. And when you go to pour it in, make sure that your mold is preheated. If not, you're going to get a big surprise from what's called thermal shock. You go to dump something in at 2,000 degrees, that's maybe 75 to 80 degrees, and that temperature change is going to tell this stuff, hey, I'm going to rapidly cool you. I can just see me trying to smelt in there, and what are you doing? And it pops and blows up, and then of course I'm in the doghouse for a week. Yes?
At the show a couple years ago, they sold a bunch of the microwave ones, and people went out and got separate microwave for them, and they've all been very disappointed with it, so I wouldn't waste my money.
Okay. Mercury! You know I'm going to talk about that! All right. I love to talk about this because nobody wants to talk about it. And I'm the type of guy that likes to talk about stuff that nobody likes. So, yeah, especially my Dowsing video. Anyway. Okay, mercury. If you use mercury the right way and you know the problems and the issues with it, it can be done in the right way. But if you don't, I wouldn't mess with it because you're going to have some health issues and possibly legal issues if you decide to mess with it. Mercury's been around forever. They've been using it forever to trap small particles of gold. It's great for amalgamation. It amalgamates with silver. Actually, amalgamates with a lot of metals. They used it in the old days. They would coat the copper plates in front of the stamp mills. So when the material came out of the stamp mill, it would get trapped. They'd scrape it up, run it through a retort. Everybody's happy. Now, you can buy mercury on the market, but they cannot ship it on an aircraft. Mercury will eat aluminum, believe it or not. It cannot be on an airplane, ever. So if you go to the airport with mercury, guess what? You're going through the hoosegow because they don't want mercury on it. It'll actually eat through the airplane if it spills. It evaporates quickly. You've got to keep it in water. So if you happen to have mercury and you buy it from one of these chemical shops, don't store it dry. Keep it in water because you'll go in about a month later and it'll be gone. And then you'll be like, great, now I'm sucking in mercury fumes in my house. So, but it works really, really well. Like I said, it's called amalgam when you mix the two together. And it actually is like a spongy little ball. And the gold, and that's another thing I got to tell you, if you got a gold wedding ring, do not mess with mercury unless you have gloves on. Because that mercury will attack that gold and you will not get it off. And your wife will be killing you. Because she'll say, oh, you hawked my gold ring for a silver ring. No, that's the gold, but it's got mercury all over it. So, and I'm going to tell you how to get that mercury off of it. The black sand should be prepped before you use mercury. Because if there's any dirts, oils, or contaminants on that black sand or that gold, it ain't going to work. It will just, the mercury won't be able to absorb the gold. It'll actually kind of repel it. So you're going to have to prep it. The best way to do that is you take your cons, distilled water, and lye. Be careful. That's some nasty stuff. And what you're going to do is you're going to run it in a tumbler like that. And I would put little stainless steel balls, which will not react with mercury, inside it. And what it'll do is it'll help amalgamate that mercury with the gold, and it actually try to crush up some of that black sand in the process. And if you look at some of these gold mines in South Africa and particularly South America, they got these big old drums that they do. They're called barrel amalgamators. And you'll see banks of them, just banks, and they'll put the material in there and run it all day. And then at the end, they'll dump it all out, and it'll be a big old amalgam ball with gold in it. And then, of course, they'll, unfortunately, they'll sit there with a torch and burn it off. And then they'll have a bad headache, and in about 2 years, they'll be dead. So, yeah, I know. So, what you're going to want to do is clean it up with lye, distilled water, and, of course, here's the formula if you guys are really interested. I like using a tumbler over a pan. You can put the mercury in a pan. You're going to want to have water in there with your black sand. And you probably put a ½ a pound in there, and you're just going to swirl that mercury around in there. And you're going to notice that that ball is going to get bigger and bigger if there's gold in the pan. And eventually you're going to have a little ball, which isn't doing anything, that's a silvery ball. And then you'll still have liquid mercury. And you're going to pour that liquid mercury off, and then you're going to take that little ball that you got. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take a little chamois. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's got to be wet, not dry. Put it in the middle. And you squeeze the heck out of it with rubber gloves on. Don't forget the rubber gloves. You got a chamois? No, wait. Oh, you got a question. You're not supposed to have questions.
It's gotta be a goat chamois. You can buy the one down at Pet Boys.
Oh, I'm not going to Pet Boys for... Okay, goat chamois.
A goat chamois.
Yeah. So...
Goat he was on. He was trying to get my goat.
Lets the mercury come out.
Sorry.
And then when you open it up, you're going to have a nice little sponge of amalgam in the middle. That's how you're going to do it if you really, really want to use mercury. It will get that fine gold. Don't get it on your jewelry or your rings. Don't get it on your skin. Don't breathe the fumes. Now, how are you going to clean it? There's 2 ways I know of. There's another one, but I'm not going to talk about that. There's heat and there's nitric acid. That's the 2 most predominant ways of cleaning up your mercury. Now in the old days, what they would do, the old timers, they would take that ball of amalgam, they put it in a baked potato. And the way that they would do that, I know it sounds kooky, no, they didn't eat it. Not like that Russian we did in that other video. They would cut the potato down the middle, open it up, and they would scoop out a little cave in the middle, a little concave place. They'd put the amalgam in there, put it back together, and they would put that in the fire, superheat that potato. What it would do is melt the mercury and absorb it, and then leave the sponge gold behind. Open it up, throw it, of course don't eat it, throw it away, and then you got your sponge gold. And then you can heat that later and refine it. That's how the old timers do it. Today we use what's called a retort. I know a lot of you guys have heard this before, but there's something I got to tell you about retorts. There's two different kinds, and this is so important if you guys are going to do this. I hate to see you die if you do it the wrong way. There's vented and there's non-vented. Now, if you buy one, get the vented one. I've seen some horrible stories about people who use non-vented ones. They stick the exit tube in the water, the heat changes in the cylinder, and all of a sudden it creates back pressure and pulls the water up into the vessel that you're heating and explodes. So, of course, it causes all kinds of problems. So don't go with the non-vented, always go with the vented. You stick that tube, the exit tube, into the water, it'll be fine, because if the heat changes in your heating vessel, there's a side draft where the air will come and be exited out through the side. So you don't have to worry about explosions. That's how most people will do it. Nitric acid is another way. You can clean up mercury with nitric acid. Now, down here I've got the formula if you guys are really interested in it. You're just going to take your gold pan and you're going to put your amalgam ball in there. You're going to put a few drops of nitric acid in there. What's going to happen is it's going to fizz. Make sure, A, that you got enough water, distilled water, on top of that amalgam ball, covering it. It has to be covering it. I know, I do that too. A few drops at a time. Don't get old gung-ho and dump the whole bottle in. Start dropping it in there, it'll fizz, it'll fizz. The fumes, they'll be brown. Do not inhale those. Oh man, it'll be the last thing you ever do. When you keep dripping that nitric acid on there until it stops fizzing. When it stops fizzing, you're gonna have this ugly looking brass spongy thing in the bottom. And you're gonna say, what the heck is that? That's not gold. Yes, it is. It's just tarnished. Don't worry about it. You can heat it up later and it'll be nice and pretty. So many times the mercury's gonna get dirty. You're gonna have an anode and a cathode in the water. And you're gonna put a 12-volt battery on there. And what it's gonna do, and one of them has to be copper, and it's gonna attract the clean mercury over to one side, and then you can scrape it off and you'll have what they call charged mercury. Now I know there's a lot that I didn't cover on that, but remember there's charged mercury and there's uncharged mercury. Charged mercury will attack gold like nobody's business. I mean, it'll suck it right up. I know a lot of people don't like to do this because of I'm sure a lot of you have heard it online. Yes, you can get gold out of your black sand using aqua regia. Do I recommend it? No, but you can do it. And you can get it from computer parts too. I'm sure you've all heard about that. Taking CPUs, especially the ceramic CPUs, and memory boards. The fingers off of them. It is nasty material. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you get a whiff of this stuff, you better have a place to lay down. It's 3 parts hydrochloric acid and 1 part nitric acid. Now, by themselves, this will not dissolve gold. Neither one will. But when they're together, the nitric acid will actually get the gold away from its, I could go into volume. Anyway, the nitric acid gets it away and the hydrochloric acid keeps it away. That's the best way I can explain it without getting in about an hour conversation of molecular chemistry. Yeah. So, you mix them together, very small quantities, and then you're going to it'll put the gold into solution. What it does, it'll actually turn gold into a liquid state. I know that sounds weird and funky, but if you guys been around mines, you know cyanide does the same thing. It'll put it into a solution, ionic solution, and they call it gold chloride or chloridic gold. Once it's in solution, you have to get it back out of solution after you dump your waste material out. Use distilled water, and you can use sodium metabisulfate to do that.
Thank you.
The old timers used to use zinc back in the old days, but now you can use stump out. You can buy it at Lowe's, and you're going to slowly put that in the solution and stir it really slow. And as you do so, it'll change color. And when it stops fizzing and changing color, you'll start to see particles of gold fall out and drop to the bottom, and it looks like dirty mud. But trust me, that's gold. Wash it out with distilled water. And there's a lot that I'm not covering because I don't want you guys to go out there and get hurt. But when you're done, you should have this super fine powder in the bottom of your beaker, and that is 99.9% gold. It don't get any purer. And then you can actually put that in a crucible, melt it, and you will have 24 karat gold ready to go right out the door. And then Midwest and AR Gold, 98 to 96% spot. Can't beat it. Don't take it to a pawn shop. Oh my God. So anyway, that's my 10 ways. And of course, you know I'm going to ask questions now. Stumps of trees, and it eats it all away.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. And so you can use that. And like I said, in the old days, they used to use powdered zinc to drop gold out of solution. So, and I didn't want to get into cyanide because none of us is going to play with sodium water, but it's not. It's diluted sodium cyanide. And it's sitting on top of this huge rubber pad. And what it does is, as the cyanide goes down, it attacks the gold and puts it into solution. And as it dribbles down, it hits that impervious level, which is that huge membrane of rubber. And that rubber feeds into a central pipe. And then that pipe goes back to the lab where they drop the gold out of solution, except they use activated carbon today. They don't do it this way. So that's how most of your modern mines work with sodium cyanide. And it's like I said, it's like at the Carlin Trend, that's what they're going to do for really low grade ore, things like that. At high grade, you don't need to mess with sodium cyanide. And you have to know how to use cyanide because it's almost an art, because if you have other metals in there, it's going to mess up the process, the chemical process. So you have to know what your tours out to a gold mine in Searchlight, his gold mine. And I've been in his mine, so I already told him what was in it before he bought it. Anyway, he has the licenses and the insurance to do this. I don't, and which is a liability issue. And he has the vehicles to transport people, which I don't. And so I'm teaming up with him this year so we can get people out to his mine, and I can go over, since he has the insurance on his property, I can say, we're going to bus people out there. This is how much it's going to cost, and I'm going to give you hands-on experience on how to find both placer and hard rock right in the field. So that's coming up this year. I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, but
See,
I don't
that's
understand why that's such a liability.
it's a big liability.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would take anybody in any of our vehicles as an owner, or what Jeff is doing, because if there was an accident, you can sue us, and we don't have the insurance to pay for
Yeah,
it.
so-
So you have to go through the right place.
I figured since he's already got all that, and he does it all the time, I'm just going to link it up with him. And I know Searchlight like the back of my hand because I've been in there since I was a kid, and I love those mines. There's not a lot of gold left in there. That's why they call it Searchlight, because they said it'd take a searchlight to find it. So that's a true story. But his gold mine, limonite. A lot of people don't understand limonite, and they are not familiar with it. And I want them to become familiar with it because it's an excellent source of secondary enrichment. Nice gold deposits can be found in limonite. And I think people should be aware of it, not just the milky quartz like you always hear on Discovery Channel. So,
And then out of Pahrump, a lot of the gold's in the basalt.
yeah, which a lot of people aren't familiar with that as
Yeah,
well.
so that needs to.
So,
Is that like leverite?
leave it right here. That's a leverite. Leave it right here. So, all right, if that's it, I'm gonna